Hey there, welcome to Craft Central Designs. Today I'm sharing with you this beautiful floral grapevine wreath with a scrapbook paper covered Dollar Tree bunny, small flower filled baskets, and very pretty ribbons. Oh my, this one is just so pretty and shades of orchid. I hope you love it as well. Let me show you how I created this one step by step. Welcome to my channel today. If you're not currently a subscriber, I hope you will consider becoming one and set your notifications as well so you will be notified each and every time I upload a video, which I typically do 2 to 3 times a week. Also, please remember to hype and give this video a thumbs up and leave me your comments. Okay, let's get creating this very beautiful grapevine floral wreath. Look at the beautiful orchids in this wreath, and let's talk for just a minute about those little baskets. Each one has different flowers. So pretty, and just something a little bit different. All right, let's get busy creating this wreath and looking at the materials that you will need to create it. I have here the wood cutout bunny from the Dollar Tree. Now, hopefully you'll be able to find these. Each Dollar Tree that I have been in personally in my area has had them, so I hope you're able to find them. If not, you could use the wood bunny from Hobby Lobby. That is an 18-inch grapevine wreath. I picked that one up at Walmart. Of course, you could pick that up at Michael's or Hobby Lobby as well. This is a beautiful piece of floral scrapbook paper that I picked up from 12 by 12 cardstock on the internet, but you could find a floral print at Hobby Lobby as well. Now I'm going to show you some different ribbons that I took out to decide, what I was going to create my bow with. I always do that at the onset of a project, not really sure what exactly I'm going to use until I actually start creating the project. Now, I have this really pretty polka dot ribbon. I have that beautiful striped Celebrate ribbon. I believe the polka dot is from craftcentraldesigns. They have beautiful ribbons. And the white burlap is a Robert Stanley ribbon. That's from Hobby Lobby. The other orchid polka dot, that is, I believe, as well, craftcentraldesigns. And the striped is a 1.5 inch. The others are 2.5, and that is from Michael's. One of my very favorite ribbons. Now, I am going to create a bow for the neck of the wood bunny. And I have here some various choices. The first little gingham check one, that was from the Dollar Tree. But I'm going to end up using a couple of those ribbons, as you will see here in just a bit. Now, I have some pipe cleaners there for making bows. This is a package of these little baskets that I used, that I filled up with flowers to place around the feet of my wood bunny. Now, I am going to spray paint those, so if you want to be sure you have some spray paint, much easier to just go ahead and spray paint them, but you could do it by hand with whatever color paint, or you could stain them with Waverly antiquing wax if you prefer to do that. And I have here some little miniature florals. Now, you are going to need these to fill up your baskets. I actually chose to fill mine up with different flowers each one. So I think that turned out really cute. And you'll see me do that here in the video. I have a brand new bottle for my Mod Podge. Isn't it just so beautiful? It really looks so much better than the old one. Oh my goodness, that was really a mess. I picked my bottles up at Walmart in the kitchen section to keep my Mod Podge in. I had some little cottontails there. Those were little bunny tails that I had picked up at Dollar Tree. Now, of course, you're going to need your various crafting tools, your wire cutters, of course, for cutting the florals, and some sharp scissors for creating your bows. And I'm going to start showing you some of the florals that I use. Now, I do have to refer to my scrapbook paper often when I'm choosing my florals, and as well the ribbons. So I do keep that handy when I'm making my decision, because you know there are so many shades of pink in this world that you just want to be careful not to use pinks that clash. Now, I did make a trip to Michael's this week because they had their Ashland Spring florals on sale. So I picked up a nice big bunch, and as you could see, those pinks were definitely too bold for that scrapbook paper. And the other pink one wasn't exactly quite right. And that's the way pinks are. It happens that way. You just have to kind of go with it. But they did have some beautiful florals in orchids and lavender colors. And I am going to use some white florals on there as well. But these in particular, gorgeous on that wreath. And this little bunch was really, really pretty for this wreath. That one had mixed little florals on it. They were so, so pretty. And I love these. I believe they're called thistle something. Not really sure. But I love the texture of them. And those I did put on the wreath. So I have a nice big bunch of florals to work with. Some of them I already had, and most of them I purchased at Michael's. Now, these are those little baskets as I showed you. And this scrapbook paper, I really, really love this for the bunny. I also added a few of these flowers from Hobby Lobby. You'll probably recognize those. I use them very often in my projects. So first thing I'm going to do is prepare my bunny. I like to prepare the items that are going to go on my wreath first. And that way I can just, have the joy of creating my wreath without having to stop to create the elements that are going to go on it. So as you can see here, I am tracing around my bunny with a pencil. And I'm just going to cut that out, and I'm going to Mod Podge that right to my bunny. And I have it all cut out here, and look how cute that is. So perfect for this project. I am going to remove that sticker on the back, and I'm going to paint the back and the sides and just a little bit on the inside line of that bunny with Waverly Snow White chalk paint, or you could use an acrylic or anything that you like. I am going to finish the side of that bunny with an orchid ribbon, as you will see here in just a bit. I'm going to create a bow that's going to go on the back of the neck of the bunny. Now, this ribbon is so, so pretty. This is from Walmart. And I liked to include a lot of different visual elements to my bows. In plain words, visual interest, different patterns, and different textures. So for this one, I'm creating the base bow with this really pretty white satin ribbon with a little cutout design on it. So pretty. And you would be surprised what a difference using ribbons like this will make on your piece, because they really add just beautiful touches. And I always say the details, they're very, very important. So for this bow, I'm going to use this ribbon, and I'm also going to use an orchid satin. I have just a little piece of that left over, but just enough, and that's all that matters. And I'm just creating a 2-loop bow, folding over my loop and then folding it over again, pinching it in the center, and then I'm just going to wrap a piece of floral wire around there, just like I did the other one. And I scrunch it up super tight, and this creates a little scrunched area in the center of my bow, and suddenly that flat bow looks very pretty when you do this. So twist that very, very tightly, and you're going to snip off the excess wire in the back because we're going to place these bows all together, and you don't want that wire in the way. Look how pretty that is. Love, love a satin ribbon. And I go to Walmart. Very, very typically, I go to Walmart to get those. Now, you can get that type of ribbon, of course, at Hobby Lobby. In fact, every other week, they're 40% off. But I just do love the variety of ribbons that they have at Walmart. Now, this pretty little gingham check, so, so pretty. I picked that up at the Dollar Tree. And often I pick up those little gingham narrow ribbons at the Dollar Tree. Not that I frequent the Dollar Tree often, but when I do, I typically pick up those ribbons. I don't know what is up with Dollar Tree, but yeah, they don't have the selection that they used to. And even at my Dollar Trees, and they're generally, pretty well stocked with different items. But in the past few months, yeah, not so much so. But I did pick up this orchid ribbon. There's a brand new Dollar Tree by my work. It used to be a Joann's. So yeah, every time I pull up to that building, I'm like, ugh. Yeah, because I really miss Joann's. But yeah, what can you do? Move on. Got to find your materials elsewhere. So I have my 3 bows there, and I love the combination. And I'm just going to put a dab of glue right in the center of my bottom bow, add my orchid, pinch that together and align it. Very important. Get your centers aligned on your bows. And I like to take my needle nose pliers and give it a little squish that flattens out any of that wire in the back and also just really compresses the center so you have a better looking bow. And on goes the gingham. Sorry, my hand is almost out of frame there. And then I am going to place a pink paper rose in the center of that bow. Now, I picked up my paper roses in the Paper Studio section at Hobby Lobby. Now, I go by that section every other week because it's 40% off and pick up anything that I may need for upcoming projects. And I saw those pink roses and I just had to have them. And it's going to be super pretty on this bow because I'm bringing in a little element of pink. As it turned out for this wreath, I ended up using primarily orchids, but there is, there are a couple of different shades of pink in that scrapbook paper, so I'm going to bring that in different ways, but primarily in the larger ways, if you will, I'm going to be using orchids. So I cut off the wire stem of that paper rose, and I'm popping that right in the center of the bow, and that is so pretty. Now, that pink matches that scrapbook paper pink flowers just beautifully. And that's going to look really pretty on the back of the neck of my bunny. Okay, so you can see my paint is all dry there, and I am ready to go placing my scrapbook paper on that bunny. Now I'm thinking here, what am I going to put along the edge? And I thought about the gingham check, which was a possibility, but then I ended up going with, that would have looked cute as well. But I ended up going with just a plain orchid narrow ribbon for the edge. The pinks weren't quite right. Again, like I say, always just match everything up. What you think initially might match, when you go to start creating your project, you might discover isn't quite so suitable for your project. So I decided to go with something a little bit plain. Now, if you follow me on my channel, you know I always finish the sides of my wood projects. I think there's just something so pretty about that. It does not have to necessarily be as wide as the side of that bunny. Just it adds color to that side of that bunny. And it adds an extra detail. Now, generally, when I put ribbon on, I do use Aleene's Tacky Glue. Reason being, I don't like the look of hot glue that has dried underneath a satin type of a ribbon. So I don't want to finish the application and look and see like squiggle glue lines underneath there. So because Aleene's Tacky is so tacky, you can really go with this when you're covering the sides of these wood pieces. So I'm going to continue on placing this down. Now, I do keep my spatula handy, and I like to do that. I like to push it into the grooves when I'm doing a covering of some type of wood piece. And that will assure that, everything is really on there very beautifully. Okay, I'm going to take my beautiful new bottle of Mod Podge and squirt some on there. Take a sponge applicator and just cover the entire bunny. Now, could you use a glue stick? I know many do. This is just my preferred method. Each and every time it comes out perfect, I'm going to let that Mod Podge dry. Now, I'm showing you here how I went about taking my little baskets outside to spray paint them. I just put them on a piece of painter's tape because they're very light. They're just going to perhaps, blow away when you start using a spray paint. That is, providing you're using a spray paint. But that's the method that I chose. I just lined them up on a piece of painter's tape, took them outside, attached them to a surface of that I use outside to spray paint, and that worked just perfectly. Using my mini Cricut heat press here, as you can see, I put a piece of parchment paper over that bunny. I made sure that my Mod Podge was dry, and I just go from edge to edge, top to bottom, and oh yeah, beautiful, beautiful attachment of that scrapbook paper on there. And I love, love, love that scrapbook paper for this project. Now, I'm going to place my bow on, and I have a tiny black button as well that I'm going to use for the eye. And then see that bow goes so perfectly with the flowers in that bunny. The flowers in the bunny were more of a mauve than they were a pink. To my eye, that's what it was. So that's why I decided not to use the pink flowers that I purchased at Michael's, which I showed you in the intro. And I ended up going with the orchids because those were easier to match and less chance of clashing, which that drives me a little bit crazy. So, yeah, you'll see me initially put them on, and then I took them off. But yes, that's our prerogative. We can do that as crafters. So I use my little quilling glue applicator that has Elmer's glue in it with the fine, tiny little tip that I use for little jobs such as this. And look at my bunny. Oh my, so, so pretty. Okay, so I have some of this little it's kind of like batting material. That's what the bunny tails are made from. from the Dollar Tree. If you're not able to find those, you could use a piece of batting. That will work as well. Or you could stretch out a cotton ball and use that. In truth, the tail doesn't even show so much on this piece, but it does show a little bit, so I wanted to go ahead because I typically add a tail to my wood bunnies. So as I mentioned before, if you can't find any of these bunnies at the Dollar Tree, I'm pretty sure you will find them one that's a little bit bigger, but it will work for this piece at Hobby Lobby. So I'm just taking my spatula and just gluing that tail down. And look how cute. Okay, now for my little baskets, I have them all spray painted. They are so cute. And I'm going to use this green Excelsior, and I'm going to put a little dab of that Excelsior in the bottom of my baskets. And this adds such a cute touch to these baskets. Now, I'm going to be using my very tiniest florals here. I'm also going to be using some paper roses. And I have bunches of those, which I believe I had gotten on Temu, but I think you can also get them on Amazon and also in the wedding department by the ribbons at Hobby Lobby. Probably at Michael's as well. I don't frequent Michael's to know their inventory as well as I know Hobby Lobby's inventory for sure. But I'm going to go ahead and fill my baskets now. And I decided to do paper roses in one basket, a lavender in another basket, and then these little tiny flowers from Hobby Lobby. They look kind of like baby's breath, but they're actually these little tiny flowers. I have them in orchid and white. And I put some little pops of pink in there as well. And oh my, how cute are these? I just thought it would be a cute idea. It just occurred to me. Why not put some little baskets at the feet of our bunny? Now, if you had some tiny carrots, that would be cute too. I didn't have any tiny carrots, but that's another idea. If maybe in your travels you've seen them, possibly they might have some at Hobby Lobby. I didn't really look for them because I kind of had it in my mind I was going to use florals in my baskets. But I'm thinking carrots would be cute too. And now I'm going to do my roses. And that Excelsior provides a nice little bed for you to attach your florals. And I just did so with tiny dab of glue on the stem of each. And I just popped it into my basket. And that will cling right to my Excelsior. Now you could use Spanish moss. It's kind of a grayish color. I personally wouldn't go with that, but I'm just offering you suggestions. Or you could use a natural colored Excelsior, but I think the green is especially suitable because of all of the leaves and the scrapbook paper are green. So just offering that suggestion. But I'm telling you, these little baskets, oh my, just turned out so cute. Now, after I'm done creating these little baskets, I thought to myself, wouldn't they look so cute? Now, you probably know what I'm going to say. If they had a bow. So I took out my little block bow maker that I make little, that I can make little bows with centers. And I'll show you here in just a minute how I did that. Here's one of my baskets with my pink orchid and white flowers. This is my lavender basket. Oh my gosh, how cute, right? Is that not cute? And look at that. Oh my, I put a little bit of filler in there too. some little seed pods, and that added a little bit in between the roses. So those are my 3 baskets. And yes, I did decide to add, now this is the only really, really narrow ribbon I had, and it's going to have to be a very small ribbon to look appropriate on the handle of the basket. So I went with this one, not the most perfect shade of pink, but it worked for the project. So I'm using my 1.5-inch width dowel there, and I'm just creating some little bows, and I'm just going to attach those to the top of my basket. Look how pretty. So that pink goes well enough. It's not a perfect match, but really difficult to have everything match so perfectly when you're dealing with pinks. I have my baskets all completed, and I am so happy with them. Now, I liked having my Excelsior kind of poking up here and there, up out of my basket. I think that added, a whimsical touch to those baskets, and oh, so cute. All right, so yeah, now I'm about to go about, oh boy, always this part. Yeah, you have to really take some time to do this. But I like to put my florals up against my ribbons to see exactly what is going to work and what isn't. And so I determined, now see those, they're almost a peachy pink. So I started out by putting those on there, and then I ended up taking them off. And I decided that ribbon, as much as I love it, was not quite the right pink. So I'm going to eliminate that one from the possibilities. Now that striped pink is the perfect pink. The orchid is a beautiful one, and I'm using a white burlap as well as my polka dot orchid. So I decided those are going to be the ones that I'm going to use. However, later, yeah, it's coming. I ended up not using the pink striped because it was making the bow a little bit too full. And you're going to see later, I'm going to show you something later about that pink stripe. I'll talk more about that later. Now, I had that green there because I thought I might pop in some of that mossy green ribbon. I really love that burlap ribbon. Ended up not doing that. But I'm getting together my tools. I'm definitely going to need the wire cutters. And for the bow, I'm definitely going to need my sharp scissors. And of course, I have my pipe cleaners there. Now, I'm showing you some greenery from Hobby Lobby. I have my favorite greenery that I get there. These little eucalyptuses come on a bush. Love those. I love that small leafy greenery that I showed you. Every other week, it's 40% off at Hobby Lobby. So, yeah, I started out with this ribbon. And I did do a base bow out of this ribbon, but something happened here while I was creating this that was, just irritating me, and I'll show you that here in just a bit. But it's something that sometimes happens in crafting, and I'm going to try and show you a resolve for it. But ultimately, I ended up taking it out, not because of the resolve that I had to utilize, but because it made the bow a little bit too full sitting on that grapevine wreath. But I'm going to show you how I made the bow, as I always do. But I do have bow tutorials, so you may want to refer to my playlist. This is what happened. I was pulling the ribbon off of the spool. Now, this is a new spool of this ribbon, mind you. This is not from, before, where I may have wrapped a piece of ribbon around it that I had left over from a project. This actually was split. And the unfortunate part is it didn't even match up
when I tried to put it back together, maybe I was thinking, okay, maybe I can conceal it in the bow, camouflage it somehow. But look, it didn't even match up, and I was just very irritated. Because honestly, that is an expensive ribbon from Michaels. Not something I've encountered probably any other time before from a Celebrate ribbon, but yeah, I just don't think that's a cool thing to do. To put that, to continue wrapping. It actually had some type of glue where they tried to glue it together. And yeah, I was very irritated, but I left this part in because I wanted to make you aware that this could happen. So, okay, me being me, I'm trying to move on and resolve and find some resolve, thinking, okay, maybe if that was on the underside of the bow, I could conceal that by placing it on the underside of the bow, but also maybe with some florals. And as it turned out, it was more on the edge of the loop, which I didn't really care for that. But me being me, I was trying to forge onward here and just, make the best of it. But you could see it kept bothering me because I kept touching it. And so I tried to put it together and, make the best of it. So I created a 6-loop bow, or 3 loops on each side. When I refer to each side, I'm referring to each side of my hand there. And I wrapped a pipe cleaner, a half a pipe cleaner around it. Now, in my mind, I was saying to myself, because this bothered me, I wasn't sure if I was even going to go forward with using this. But I thought, okay, let me try it and see how it works once I try and put it on the piece. So I just kept my tails around, I think I left them around 14 inches. I knew that I wanted them trailing down from the wreath, but not as long as some of the tails that I use on a wreath. So I kept it around that length. Okay, so you can see here that you can actually see that seam. And not only that, you can see that it doesn't match up. So yeah, I was kind of half tempted to just go back to Michael's. If it were close in proximity to where I was, I probably would have. But I'm proceeding on here, and I'm doing a bow that's going to go into that mixture of ribbons. And I'm using this polka dot, which is one of my favorites. Now, if you're a lover of polka dot ribbons, I can tell you that craftoutlet.com carries a lot of polka dots. You can also find polka dot ribbon on Amazon, but not so much other stores with a variety of different types of polka dots. I happen to like this one because it's a mixture of sizes of polka dots, and I like that for visual interest. So as you can see, I'm doing my bows in the typical way in which I do. Now, I would not suggest to anyone that this is the greatest way to learn to make this bow, creating a mixed ribbon bow. You need to start with the basics of creating this bow. And that can be achieved by looking on my playlist, finding the various ones that I have. I actually have one just on creating a mixed ribbon bow, so you might want to look at that one. But I'd look at some of the basic ones first. You need to learn how to form the loops and create just a simple bow like this with this technique before you try and move on to doing mixed ribbon bows. So I am going to create a bow with this 1.5 inch, but I think I'm going to add just a white in there. And I love this Robert Stanley burlap ribbon. I absolutely love their burlap ribbons. They're very sturdy, they're well wired, and the ribbon is just beautiful. So Robert Stanley brand is at Hobby Lobby, and every other week they're 40% off. So I always make sure I have this in my stash. Now for this one, I'm just going to do a 4-loop bow or 2 loops on each side. I'm trying not to create too much bulk in this ribbon, but at the same time, add a lot of visual interest, which was my intention by using the striped, the polka dot, the texture of the burlap, and then the more narrow stripe ribbon from the Celebrate ribbon. Now, I'm talking a lot about this bow here today, but I try and explain how I go about choosing my ribbons for my bows, as well as actually showing you how to make it, because that's an important part of the process. How you match up your bows, how you choose your patterns, and how you choose your textures. So sometimes I like to go on and on about that to try and help you with your future projects when you start doing your wreaths independently without referring to maybe a tutorial that someone else has done in a particular design, because you will at some point start doing this on your own. At least that's what I hope for you, that you will do that. And in explaining my mindset while I do it, I hope that that helps you. Okay, so I have a 4-loop bow, and I make my loops a little bit smaller for each bow as I progress up toward the top of the bow. So that way you can see each of the colors and each of the patterns. And yeah, it creates a very pretty bow like that, which is something you'll learn if you watch my tutorial on how to make a mixed ribbon bow. Now for the back of each bow, I need to snip off any excess pipe cleaner because I need for those bows to sit very flush upon one another. So I snip those off. I try when I cut pipe cleaners to use my wire cutters to keep from, ruining my good scissors. And that's the last one. Now I'm going to take a full-size pipe cleaner and attach all these together. When I do my little tiny narrow ribbon bows, I do use hot glue often. But when you're doing a big bow like this, you're going to need to use pipe cleaners, preferably ones that match or coordinate with your bow. Oh gosh, look at that. Yeah, you can see it's bugging me, right? Because I keep looking at it and looking at it. So you know what's going to happen, right? That bow is going to disappear. Now, I'm going to try and fix that. Now, I have little bow tricks, okay? I'm full of bow tricks. So I cut a piece of ribbon that was approximate size of the loop. And I'm going to gather it at the bottom. You know what I'm going to do here, right? I'm going to eliminate that bow loop. Now, I'm keeping this in here, even though I didn't use the bow, to show you how just sometimes things happen that you need to correct. Now, had I used this bow, this did work for this process. So I created a bow loop. Now I'm going to separate out that loop and snip it off. Now, because this bow is the bottom bow, it's going to be covered up. You can see I was agitated when I squashed that up, right? So I'm snipping away any of the excess ribbon, and I'm just going to take that loop and I'm going to hot glue it in there. Now, again, because this is the bottom tier or the base bow, I can do this and it's not going to show. Had it been the top tier, maybe not. I probably would not have done this. But there are little tricks because sometimes things happen. Like, say, for example, if you happen to drop something on a bow, maybe a blob of hot glue that you couldn't get off and you didn't want it to show and you needed to replace the loop. Or maybe you were painting something on your piece, a little last minute touch up, and you drop a dab of paint. Something like that. You could fix that, is what I'm trying to show you. And along the way, in my tutorials, I try and show you potentially things that could happen, but yet a way to fix them so you don't have to abandon the project. Okay, so I open up the loops of my bow, and I'm going to place tier number 2, which is that completely adorable orchid polka dot ribbon. Love, love this one. Now, you'll notice that I have my hand right down the center of my tails, and I'm separating those out as I go. Next comes my beautiful white burlap. Now, as I go, I'm aligning all of the centers of my bow. And then I'm going to place my last one on there, making sure that one is aligned nice and straight. And I'm going to squish all of those very tightly together. Now, my needle nose pliers won't work here because it's just too wide of an area, but I do that with my small bows. I'm taking a pipe cleaner, popping it right through that center loop, putting it right down in between the sets of tails, and I'm going to pull it so tight on the back. And then I'm going to twist several times. And this is how I attach all of my bows together. Now, let's say that I want to remove a bow. And that happens sometimes. You might decide, you know what, that doesn't work. You can take it apart by simply untwisting that pipe cleaner that you pop down the center of that loop and wrapped around the back. You can take that off and untwist it and pull that loop off, or pull that bow off of there. Now, up to this point, I still have that on there, as you can see, but you're going to see that I took it off, and it's simple as detaching it. If you've already put it on the wreath, by untwisting the pipe cleaners, untwist the pipe cleaners on the back of the bow, remove the bow, and then twist them back again. And you have, a removal of a bow. Now, you could remove anything in the middle as well by just taking off that pipe cleaner that you use to attach all of those bows together. And that's another resolve. It happens that sometimes you may want to make a change. Okay, so I'm just opening up my loops on all of these bows because that's an important part of shaping your bow once you get it all attached together. Now, as far as the tails, I generally wait to trim those up until I have it on the wreath. Okay, so here we have this grapevine wreath from Walmart. Now, first thing I generally do when I use a grapevine wreath is trim everything up, because usually they come and they're kind of messy, wires sticking out and twigs sticking out and pieces of a tree sticking out. That was like a little thick branch in there. Now, sometimes your grapevine wreaths may not be perfectly shaped, but keep in mind this is going to be covered with florals, so it's really not going to matter. So I trimmed everything up, and I'm deciding here where I'm going to put my bow, and I ended up putting it around 3 to 4 o'clock on that wreath, but I always need to decide approximately where my bow is going to go, because this is going to be a floral wreath, so I don't need to have a lot of florals underneath my bow. That's kind of a waste of florals. But I do put a little bit of greenery. So I have some pieces of greenery. Again, I get this from a Hobby Lobby. And I'm just going to place some greenery around my wreath. Now, what's great about a grapevine wreath, and this is the reason why I choose a grapevine wreath when I do a wreath that's primarily florals, is because you can poke those greenery pieces and any of your florals down into the grapevine. And you don't have to necessarily glue it, unless you have some pieces like I have here, which maybe just, they don't have a much of a wire stem to poke down in there. Now, if this is for you and you're not, you're going to keep this for yourself, you don't have to necessarily glue all this in, because maybe at some point in time, you'll say, you know what, I'm tired of that wreath. I'm going to create something new. Then you can just pull everything out and you still have your grapevine wreath. This particular one I'm probably going to sell. I do have an Etsy shop, by the way. I haven't been promoting it. I haven't even been posting much on it, because for the past year or so, I've been donating all of my pieces. But I decided I'm going to start selling some of my pieces again. I donate to 2 different places. I donated, everything I made last year to the Quantum House, but I also donate to an animal rescue in this area. They have a thrift shop and a beautiful, beautiful facility that's supported by donations. So, but I am going to probably post this one on my Etsy shop. And I will put the name of my Etsy shop in the description box if you're interested, or you know someone who might be interested in purchasing this wreath. I'm actually going to be posting 3 of my Easter wreaths in my Etsy shop. And I'll let you know which ones those are in case you're interested, or you know someone who may be interested, you can refer them. All right, I'm taking a 6-inch dowel. Enough about my Etsy shop right now. I'm taking a 6-inch dowel, and what I'm going to do with this is I'm providing a post, if you will, and I'm using Aleene's Tacky because I want a nice good hold on that, and I also reinforced it with hot glue, and you'll see later I actually put felt on it as well. But this little dowel, I'm going to be able to poke it right through that grapevine wreath. Again, this is what's great about a grapevine wreath. You can manipulate the twigs in there that make up the wreath, and you can, really tailor your wreath the way you need it to be by just manipulating those twigs and poking things in there that you want to include on the wreath. Now I'm starting with my largest florals. I have all of my greenery on there, not to say I'm not going to add a few more pieces, because I do, but I just wanted a base. So I have these little small hydrangeas in shades of purple or shades of orchid, and I place those on. And I have these little white, I believe they're ranunculus, that I got in the spring shop at Michael's. I am going to include some white florals on here because I just think they're so pretty, and they go well with the scrapbook paper and the whites and the ribbons. Now, I just snip those off and I push the greenery up because I want to include the greenery with the florals, and this helps to add, more greenery to my wreath. So I snipped that off, and I decided I was going to use about that many on the wreath. And I'm going to be poking that rabbit right down, and it's going to be kind of cradled in the bottom of that wreath. But first, I'm going to just apply a little bit of florals here and there. Now, again, you can hot glue these in or not. I'm going to be selling this one, or at least I think I am. I think I'm going to sell it. And I'm just going to glue those because whenever I sell a wreath,
I also have some wreath clients, and I also, think it's a good idea if you're selling or you do craft shows or whatever the case may be to hot glue those in. Now, I use Gorilla hot glue. I think it is the best quality hot glue to hold florals in. So I do that. Now, this time of year, this is an Easter wreath. Even if it's outside, it's not going to be enduring super hot temperatures. And I live in Florida, and I still would feel fine about putting this outside and not worrying that things are going to fall off. Now, do you see those? Those are ranunculus as well. Yeah, I mean, they on their own, they seem like they're pink, right? But when you start looking at them closely, I put them on the wreath and I just kept looking at them going, yeah, you know what? I think they look too peachy. So I pulled them off. Even if I glue them in, I can still pull them out. That's the beauty of a grapevine wreath. If you pull hard, you can get them out. Now, that particular stem, oh my, what that adds to this wreath, oh, so beautifully. Now, I decided at this point it was time to put the bow on because I'm adding in all of these florals and I really need for them to go around the bow and certainly not under it. Now, to put the bow on, you simply take the tails of the pipe cleaner and you feed them through openings in the grapevine wreath. Now, I did put this bow on only to take it off later and eliminate that pink and white striped bow underneath. But for the time being, I'm going to leave it on there. It was just a little bit too bulky. And so I just placed that on there so I could work around it when I placed my florals. Now I'm showing you here. You take your pipe cleaners and poke them right through the grapevine. This grapevine wreath is virtually not even going to show once I have this piece done. I just love it for a base. So I'm pulling it around to the back, pulling it very, very tightly up against the grapevine wreath and twisting those pipe cleaner tails in the back. So even though I corrected that pink and white stripe, I was still just not completely sold on it. I think I was just traumatized by that break in the ribbon, and it just left me with feeling like, I think I'm not sure I'm even going to keep that. Okay, enough about the bow and enough about the ribbons, but again, just trying to help you think about a bow is such an essential, really critical part of a design of a wreath or any project. And so I'm just spending some time here today trying to help you with that process. Okay, so I decided, in addition to the glue, the two types of glue that I put on there, I put a piece of felt with some additional hot glue. Because once I go to start poking that through the grapevine, I was worried that it might come off of the back of the bunny. Okay, so I didn't make you watch me struggle with that, but I did hang this up. I'm at my RV today crafting, and I poked it right through the grapevine. Now, I was able to stick my fingers in there and manipulate that grapevine so that I could get that through and poke that through with the dowel. And this is going to hold that bunny very nicely on there. And I did put, in addition, a little bit of glue at the feet of the bunny just to make sure that bunny was not going anywhere, because it is a wood bunny, not a heavy wood bunny, but it's a wood bunny with a little bit of thickness nonetheless. So I wanted to make sure, again, because I'm going to sell it, to pop that through and have it very secure on there. Now, as far as those dowels poking down there, I did take my miter shears and snip that off. But in truth, that greenery and all the florals, you're not going to see that dowel anyway.
So I'm going to start placing a bed of greenery down there at the bottom of the wreath where I'm going to be placing my baskets. So I took out more of my greenery, and now I'm in the process of adding that in. Now I put a few different types of greenery down here at the base, and you're going to see me take my little baskets and just try and find a nice place to nestle those in at the base, the bottom of that grapevine wreath. And I had that really pretty piece of greenery. I decided to pop that in there. But you're going to see me here just kind of experimenting where I wanted to put those. And I love the addition of this to this wreath. Now, those baskets are simply going to be hot glued in there, but I need to make sure before I start gluing exactly how they're going to sit. And they're going to look like they're sitting in that bed of greenery. By the time I'm finished, that's the way it's going to look. I'm going to also add some tiny little florals around them as well. But this is pretty much right here the way I decided to arrange my baskets. So wherever I can attach them with hot glue, that's what I did. Even up against the bunny a little bit. And so I'm going to place some hot glue at my point of contact on that wreath. I discovered that my hot glue gun had come unplugged, so I had to take a little break there. Okay. Now, I'm just going to push that right up in next to the bunny. And you might have a little space initially underneath your baskets, but that's where you add the greenery and the florals. So you're going to fill that in. And I'm going to add all 3 baskets at this point, just so I can begin filling in around them. This is another one of my marathon videos. I'm sure you noticed, but when I do a wreath with a lot of detail, if I skip those details, I feel that's a disservice to you. If you are really interested in making this piece, I'm going to do my best to show you how to achieve that. Okay, so I have 2 of my baskets glued in there. The other one is, look at that one. The one with the roses just, oh my gosh. I'm just so crazy for it. But I'm still experimenting here. Where am I going to put them? But I ended up lining them up actually at a little bit different levels, as you can see here. I'm showing you that. There's a little curve in the way that I aligned them on that wreath. And now you're going to see me start to fill in the spaces. I do that with greenery, and I do that with small florals. And you'll soon see that those baskets look like they're resting in the greenery. And of course, I use hot glue to attach all of those, but there's plenty of material there to attach it to. The baskets, the other greenery. Yeah, this will all hold together very, very well. Now I am going to be filling in all those bare areas that you see the grapevine there, the grapevine wreath. But right now I'm just concentrating on the bottom, and then I'm going to work my way around. Now I did arrange, and I don't think I said this, but I did arrange my greenery and my florals to be in a clockwise direction. So starting from my bow, at right around 5 o'clock, I just proceed around the wreath, facing my greenery and my florals to go around the wreath in a clockwise direction. Now, see how I filled that in with different fillers and little tiny flowers and greenery? See how it's all filled in beautifully now at the bottom? Now I'm going to start applying all these beautiful pops of color around the wreath. I don't know what that is called, that right there, but oh my goodness, it's so pretty. And one of the reasons why I go back to Michael's every spring season, because I know that they're going to have that year after year. And so I got a big bunch of that. And notice something missing here? I did it. I took out the pink and white striped bow. And I'm much happier now because that bow's a little bit smaller on the piece and I think a little bit more conducive to the size of the wreath. And I'm happy that I'm just including the whites and the orchids. All right, so I went around the wreath, as you can see here, just popping in those pieces in a clockwise direction. Again, see how they're facing, going around the wreath? And I did another thing too here. Those ranunculus that I said looked a little bit peachy, I took them out. And I'm happier with that now too. So I'm going to use these little fillers. I think it's called thistle or something like that. But I love the texture of them, and I think they're so beautiful in a wreath. And those are from Michael's as well. I got a nice big bunch, and I also got these at Michael's. Not that Hobby Lobby doesn't have pretty florals. Of course they do. But you know how you like what you like, and I always like the spring florals that they sell at Michael's every year. So I wait for the sale, and I go there to purchase. Okay, so I'm going to pop in all of my really small elements like that around the wreath. So I start with my largest, and I try to create balance and symmetry around my wreath. So I'm always looking, and seeing where I need to fill in spaces after I put in my large elements. I also concentrate on distributing my color. Now, obviously on this wreath, it's a lot of shades of orchid, but I'm still thinking about how do I distribute those different shades of orchid around the wreath. I also make sure I'm distributing around the wreath any of my white flowers. So again, think about how you're doing all of that. And this is my finished piece. And I absolutely love it. Tell me what you think of this one. I'll put my Etsy shop in the description box. If you know anyone that might be interested, I'll be posting this sometime this week. And oh, I am so in love with this. There's my favorite Hobby Lobby flower. I popped in some other little white flowers. So much greenery, the thistle, and the beautiful bow. Remember to subscribe if you are not currently. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed. And of course, always leave me your comments. I love receiving them. And until next time, you all take care.